Hello, football fans. It's Monday, which means we just had another Friday full of football matchups for high school, and we went and checked out some of the games. Playoffs are in full gear all over the state, and teams are starting to narrow down as they head on their roads to make the state championship. Today, we'll be looking at some of the top matchups from Lawrence to Shawnee, all the way to Western Kansas. We'll check this all out now, as well as some rankings, matchups, updates, and of course, top 5 plays. All this right now on Heartland Huddle. State championships are just 2 weeks away, and as the season comes to an end for some teams, others are gearing up to earn their place. Today we're taking a look at some of what took place this week, starting off with an electric game of the week where Mill Valley took on St. Thomas Aquinas. For this week, they were number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in 5A, but as always, only one could win and things got intense. It definitely lived up to its game of the week title. We'll see who won soon with Xander. And then Olathe West is having a fantastic season, sitting at number 3 ranked team in 6A right now. So Nick checked out their game against Olathe South. After a little bit of a dip in their season, but then a win against Olathe East, Lawrence Free State took on Shawnee Mission Northwest. We'll see how that went soon. Finally, to end off their reigning 2024 state champs, Gardner Edgerton played Olathe North. We'll see if they have the chance to keep that state title soon. First, let's head to Xander with the game of the week.
Thanks, Jamison. This game between two football powerhouses was an instant classic. The last time St. Thomas Aquinas or Mill Valley wasn't the state champions for the 5A class was 2017. After 5 straight Mill Valley championships from 2019 to 2023, St. Thomas Aquinas dethroned them last year in a 1-point victory in the 3rd round of the playoffs on their way to winning the state title. This time around, though, the Jaguars would get their revenge and defeat the defending champion Saints, pulling off the upset by a score of 28-27. It was an absolute thriller of a game that came down to the last minute. But to get to that, we have to start from the beginning. It was the Saints who would start fast, and on the opening drive of the game, junior quarterback Carson Patrick would open up the scoring and cap off the 5-minute drive with a 3-yard rushing touchdown to put the Saints up 7-0 early. Scoring stalled for the rest of the quarter, but Mill Valley would ramp it up in the second. Following a long punt return, senior quarterback Blake J would find the end zone on a 13-yard run to tie things up. When St. Thomas Aquinas looked poised to take back the lead the next drive, Mill Valley stopped Saints senior running back Callan Art 4 straight times to complete a goal line stand. Their ensuing drive would go 99 yards in just 4 minutes, and junior running back Max Piva capped it off with a 27-yard rushing touchdown to give Mill Valley its first lead of the game. The Jaguars looked poised to lead going into halftime, but the Saints drove down the field in just under a minute and a half, and Art would score a 5-yard rushing touchdown with no time left on the clock to go into halftime tied at 14. The tie would quickly be broken in the second half by the Jaguars when, after a long completion to junior tight end Stone Zambo, Piva would score his second touchdown of the night on a 3-yard rush. After a couple more defensive stops, the Jaguars would score to open the 4th quarter when Blake J found Zambo for a 15-yard touchdown pass on 4th down to take a 28-14 lead. Despite the deficit, St. Thomas was far from finished. Carson Patrick would score his second rushing touchdown midway through the 4th quarter, and after forcing Mill Valley to punt, St. Thomas had 3 minutes to go 84 yards. It took just a few plays and under a minute for them to get near the red zone. And with 50 seconds remaining, Patrick found junior Jackson Rafferty for a 10-yard touchdown pass to make it 28-27. Instead of trying to tie the game up, the Saints went for 2 and the win. They handed the ball off to their star running back, Callan Art, but just like the goal line stand earlier in the game, the Jaguars stuffed the run, and the attempt was no good. The Jaguars sideline went absolutely crazy, and the Saints sideline went silent. The onside kick was recovered by Blake J, who would end the game in victory formation, as Mill Valley would not be denied by Aquinas this year. What an ending to this game. This has to be in contention for Game of the Year. Who would have thought the defending champions and the 2 seed would be out in just the 2nd round? Unfortunately for the Saints, a great season comes to an end for them against the Jaguars, who just aren't your normal 7 seed. Mill Valley will go on the road to take on St. James in the quarterfinals next week in what is sure to be another thriller that we'll be there to cover. Now, let's head over to Nick, who's got the scoop on Olathe South versus Olathe West.
It was an action-packed Friday night in Olathe as the Class 6A regional playoffs heated up. The 8-1 Olathe West Owls squared off against the 5-4 Olathe South Falcons. While this isn't a traditional rivalry, both teams came ready to make a statement. In the beginning, West wasted no time marching down the field, starting the first quarter out with a strong 14-0 lead, but South answered quickly with a 37-yard touchdown pass to Trey Hayes. From there, both teams started to come alive. 3 touchdowns by West and a touchdown plus a field goal by South, taking it to 35-17 in favor of West going into the half. South opened up the second half with a touchdown, but missed the 2-point conversion. West promptly responded with another score, though their extra point was no good. Both teams traded scores into the fourth quarter, but just as it looked like the game was over, the momentum was halted and the game was put on pause due to near back-to-back player injuries for Olathe West. This gave South the time to regroup and punch in one final touchdown, but it wasn't enough, leading West to a nail-biting 55-44 win. The Owls' victory came behind several standout performances. Quarterback Brody Hale went 13 of 18 in pass attempts with a total of 251 yards and 5 passing touchdowns. Running back Josh Folan led the game with 18 carries and 144 rushing yards, and wide receiver Sam Kriskowski expectedly stole the spotlight with 91 rushing yards and 151 receiving yards to make a total of 4 touchdowns. Next week, the Owls take on Olathe Northwest in a highly anticipated rematch. The two teams met earlier this season, with West taking the 38-27 win, but with the playoffs on the line, the Owls will need to keep this momentum up to keep their postseason hopes alive.
Thanks, Nick. We had a high-paced offensive shootout on Friday night as we saw the Free State Firebirds take on the Shawnee Mission Northwest Cougars in a regional championship matchup. The Cougars were looking to sweep the city of Lawrence as they defeated Lawrence High the week before, while the Firebirds were coming off a much-needed momentous win over Olathe East. This game was filled with large amounts of offense from both sides, but eventually the Cougars pulled away with this one, 38-31. The fireworks got started early for the Firebirds as their offense went straight to work. After leading a long drive down the field, quarterback Finn Moore capped it off with a rushing touchdown to open the scoring for the Firebirds with an early 7-0 lead. They continued to apply pressure on the Cougars as running back Madden Brittingham made a spectacular one-handed catch and took it 72 yards to the house as the Firebirds were fired up as they extended their early lead to 14. The Cougars would not let this game be decided early though, as they would put together a drive of their own, with quarterback Trey Woodruff finishing it off with a rushing touchdown to put the Cougars' first points on the board for the night. Defenses would finally come to play as each team would only trade field goals to close out the half, with the Firebirds leading 17-10. The Cougars would come out of the locker room red hot as Trey Woodruff would put on an absolute rushing clinic with 2 more rushing touchdowns to give his team the lead 24-17. The Firebirds would finally pick up some momentum though as Finn Moore ran in his second touchdown of the night after a great run and absolutely nasty juke. Unfortunately for the Firebirds, it was all Cougars after that. Trey Woodruff put the team on his back and he would punch in not 1, but 2 more touchdowns, both on the ground to give him 5 rushing touchdowns on the night. Even with the late touchdown from the Firebirds, that would be all she wrote. Shawnee Mission Northwest takes this one 38-31 for a huge win in front of the home crowd. I was able to catch up with Trey Woodruff after his amazing performance. We're here with Shawnee Mission Northwest quarterback Trey Woodruff. Trey, you just scored 5 touchdowns and a huge win. How does it feel?
It feels great, man. Back-to-back regional champions and on to the next week, yeah.
Big win for the guys. How do you carry this performance in the next week against Gardner?
Well, I don't want to, when we carry it on, I don't want to get too hyped, We want to keep our composure and stay at an even level and keep going.
Absolutely, and finally, this is a huge win for you guys, back-to-back regional champs. What does this mean for this team?
Oh man, it means a great thing to us. This team been here since getting their 8th grade year and coming together, and the chemistry all works well.
Shawnee Mission Northwest will head to Gardner Edgerton to take on the Blazers in what is sure to be another electric matchup in the 6A playoffs. Speaking of Gardner, let's send it over to Logan to hear what they did this Friday.
In the second round of 6A playoffs, we have rivals meeting yet again. Gardner Edgerton versus Olathe North. The Trailblazers, back-to-back state champions, were looking to keep their three-peat hopes alive, and they did just that, coming out on top to advance to the next round. The tone was set right from kickoff. As Gardner Edgerton's Jensen Honey kicks off the game, the ball slips right through the hands of Olathe North's Justin Rowland, and the Trailblazers were right there to recover the ball, foreshadowing a dominant Trailblazer game that was to come. Moments later, senior running back and Pitt State commit Sire Padilla finishes the short drive with a touchdown combined with a good kick from Jensen Honey to put Gardner Edgerton up 7-0. Olathe North answered right back. Jason Rush took the kickoff from the 10-yard line and ran it all the way down to tie the game 7-7. But that just was not enough. From there, Gardner Edgerton's offense took control, as Padilla kept piling up yards and scoring again and again behind a dominant offensive line. Olathe North struggled to find consistency with quarterback swaps all through the night. From the start of the second quarter, the Eagles were rotating between senior Riley Johnson and sophomore Chase Williams, but by the end of the third, Johnson went down with an injury, and junior Noah Majors stepped in at quarterback, hoping to make something happen for the Eagles. However, by then, the Trailblazers were in full control of the game. Quarterback Carson McCall added 2 more touchdowns in the third quarter, extending the lead and sealing Gardner Edgerton's spot in the next round. The Trailblazers finished with a 63-35 victory, moving one step closer to another state title. After the win, I caught up with running back Sire Padilla and quarterback Carson McCall, who talked about the team's mindset and what was fueling their playoff run.
We knew we had to play a full football game, a full 4 quarters of football, and prove to ourselves and our community and like all the other teams that we're a mentally tough team and we're going to be hard to beat.
It feels very good to come out here in the second half to win like that. It's a rivalry out here for these coaches, and it just feels really good. I got to give thanks to our offensive coordinator, Coach Delaney. It's great calls up there, and it's just great blocks. Linemen do great, receivers do great. It's not me, it's all them.
I think just playing for my team, this is my senior year. I feel like, I don't know, I kind of owe it to my teammates and the people around me just to leave it all out there.
Gardner Edgerton's win over Olathe North keeps them alive to see another week of playoffs. With just 2 rounds left, the Trailblazers remain focused on one goal and one goal only, a historic three-peat. Reporting for Heartland Huddle, I'm Logan Manerath.
Kicking off this part of our show, Trevor is taking us out west, where just as intensive games have been taking place. He's checking in to how it's going out there soon. After that, we'll have Grady updating on all the different playoff matchups and who is taking on who. Finally, as always, to wrap this up, we'll have 5 of the best plays from this week. Stick around to see who made it first. We are heading to West with Trevor.
Thanks, Jameson. And you're right. We're following Toby Keith's advice and heading west, but not for any gold rushes just yet. Starting out with our most impressive performance in 5A this week, the Salina South Cougars have been on a date with destiny since playoffs have started. Coming into the bracket at 1-7, they opened up with a huge win at 3-seeded Andover, 24-20, as 32.5-point underdogs. Never tell them the odds. The books took note of that win because they would then travel to Liberal, only 18-point underdogs, and the Cougars, well, they like those odds. South beat Liberal on their own turf 22-16 and now sit at 3-7 on the season, with their next matchup being crosstown rivals Salina Central, which was their season opener this year that Central won 31-21. On the top side of the 5A bracket, a sectionals rematch from last season featuring the Hayes Indians took on to traveling to Hutchinson to take on the Salthawks. Last season, Hayes was all gas and no brakes, pitching a shutout against Hutchinson 28-0, and was looking to repeat the same performance this year. Returning much of their offensive firepower, they made a strong effort to follow that same path. Hayes never trailed in this victory, with Holden Lind continuing to be a powerhouse in the backfield. Lind rushed for 177 yards on 27 carries and scored the first 2 touchdowns on the night for Hayes. His efforts that lasted the season have continued to give him a new credit on his resume, now holding the all-time career record rushing yards at Hayes with 3,662 and still counting. He has almost crested the 2,000-yard mark this season alone and will look to continue to pad his stats and the win column as Hayes traveled to take on the Great Bend Panthers. The Panthers did beat them in their last matchup just a few weeks ago, 43-19, and it should be a great game on Friday night. We're going to stay in the southern hemisphere of Kansas, where Washburn Rural traveled down to Sedgwick County to take on the Grizzlies of Northwest. Another game led by a prolific offense and running back that would make all the difference. Senior Augie Fast of Northwest puts up nearly 300 yards in the game as they roll to a statement win 52-28. Now don't let the box score fool you. This game was close for the first 30 minutes. Fast had 3 rushing touchdowns in the first half as Northwest clinched a 24-21 lead at the break. But from there, Rural forgot to come out of the locker room. The Grizzlies scored 28 unanswered in the second half as they go on to win in convincing fashion, with Augie Fast putting up 5 touchdowns of his own. With Northwest advancing, they await the winner of another playoff rematch between Derby and Junction City. Last season, Junction City saw an early exit at the hands of the Panthers and would hope to rewrite their script. Unfortunately, they just resubmitted the same assignment from last year, trying to pass it off as something new, and Derby would take this game as well by a final tally of 28-7. Junction could never get their offense in rhythm and in the end zone, and Derby held the lead at the break 7-0. Their defense was the big story of the night. The Blue Jays, averaging over 33 points a game, gave up 3 turnovers, only gained 133 total yards, and did not convert a single third down on the night. The lone score from Junction would come from a special teams play on a 98-yard kick return by Lavelle Autry. With this behind them, they now have their sights set on crosstown rival Wichita Northwest, that Derby holds an all-time record of 8-0 against, last meeting in 2017. Now we'll bump down to 2A for a quick hop, and I'm setting this one up for 2 reasons. First and foremost, Russell has had a revival of a season, posting their best record in over 20 years, but unfortunately had the draw against heavyweights in southeast of Saline Trojans, who have been merciless on their pursuit of perfection all year. They made quick work of Russell with a 44-12 final, and that was the closest game that the Trojans have had all season. The second reason I bring this game up is because we're set up for a fantastic weekend of football in Saline County. As I mentioned earlier, Salina South looks to continue their 5A Cinderella run versus Salina Central. Southeast of Saline is still gunning for their 2A title against Phillipsburg, and in 8-man Division I, the El Saline Cardinals are going to be locked in an offensive shootout against the Lincoln Leopards. And if none of that strikes your fancy and you want to travel to the big city instead, well, Wichita has just as much to offer. 6A Manhattan will travel to take on the 10-0 Mays Eagles, and Derby goes down the road for Northwest. 4A boasts contender Cape and Mount Carmel to take on Wellington, and 3A has undefeated Andover taking on 9-1 Pratt. And that is just the tip of the iceberg for this weekend's sectionals. I'm not going to spoil anything else on the west side, so instead, let's go back east, and I'm going to let Grady take over on some of our new playoff matchup.
Thanks for that update, Trevor. As we hit the sectional round of the playoffs, these matchups are heating up, and there's some fantastic games out east that I'll be taking a look at. First, I'll be looking at the 6A 1 versus 4 matchup, which is Olathe West versus Olathe Northwest. These teams met at the end of the regular season, with Olathe West taking that matchup 38-27, but the Ravens, led by their quarterback Brody Comfort, will look to pull off the upset against one of the best offenses in the state. The other 6A East matchup pits number 2 seed Gardner Edgerton, looking to defend their state championship against number 3 seed Shawnee Mission Northwest, in a battle of 2 really good rushing offenses. If you like the run, well, you'll like Sire Padilla versus Trey Woodruff in that matchup. Now we go to 5A, where we have another matchup of 2 really good rushing offenses between Mill Valley and St. James Academy. The Thunder are coming off a big win against 3-seeded Spring Hill, while Mill Valley pulled off that win against St. Thomas Aquinas by just 1 point last week. And finally, we go to 4A, where Eudora, the 1 seed out east, takes on 13-seeded Bishop Miege. Now, don't let that seed fool you. The Stags, they come for wins every season in the playoffs, and they should look to continue that trend as they take on the Cardinals. That's enough for me for some of these matchups, and I'll send it back to Jude, who has our top 5 plays of the week.
That's right, top 5 plays from this past week's playoff matchups. Here in the 5th spot, we've got Briggs Cunningham. He's also a basketball player, but he might be getting some attention from the wrestling coach as he stops the return man here with a textbook double leg takedown. At number 4, Free State's Madden Brittingham snags the high pass with one hand, breaks the tackle, and outruns the entire defense on his way to this 72-yard touchdown. In the number 3 spot, we have Lavelle Autry of Junction City, who with the help of some great blocks is able to get past the first line of defense, and then it's a foot race, and Autry is not going to be caught as he goes the full 98 yards for the huge touchdown. At number 2, Salina South's Jay Curtis isn't able to hold on to the pass, but neither are the defenders as the ball bounces and bobbles its way back into Curtis's arms for the big conversion on 3rd and long. And at the number 1 spot, 27-28, St. Thomas Aquinas goes for 2 in the lead, but they are stopped short by the Mill Valley defense, who would recover the onside kick and win the heavyweight matchup against the defending state champs. What a moment, what a play. We expect more exciting plays in the next round of playoffs, so make sure to submit your top plays to us at Heartland Huddle.
Well, that wraps up this week's episode. Keep tuning in to check out highlights from your favorite teams as we are live at 6 every Monday. In 6A, we are down to 8 teams with some big matchups going down this weekend, with Mays hosting Manhattan and my alma mater, Olathe West, taking on their rival, Olathe Northwest. On the 5A side, with Mill Valley taking down Aquinas, I feel that everyone on the show is taking the Jags to win it all. Big things are happening for high school football. You don't want to miss, so keep checking in as we only have 3 weeks until state. Catch up with us on Media Crossroads and social media for KU Sport. For KU Sports content, check out Playmakers and Run It Back. I'll see you guys next time to update on everything that happens in the sectionals rounds of playoffs. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Heartland Huddle.